Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Zishan Asad with Zishan on air, and we need to get right into our key topics today. First of all, the second round of negotiations between the US and Iran has not happened. Trump says US envoy trip for Iran peace talks is cancelled, the Wall Street Journal has reported. And the reason for that, when the Iranian foreign minister and the delegation arrived in Islamabad, Pakistan is acting as a mediator uh, and as a party to bring these two groups together. They have not spoken face to face for 40 years since the 1979 Iranian Revolution. So the Iranian delegation, they left and they gave a list of demand to the Pakistan's army chief, Asim Munir, and then the Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif. They met them. However, they were not willing to meet with the US. And that's basically the key news. And it has also been verified by many Pakistani journalists like Hamid Mir and others who are well known within the Pakistani circles. And what happened in terms of why the Iranian delegation did not want to meet the US, that's where the information that is coming out, not only from Pakistan, but also from some other experts. And one of them I would like to quote, especially this person. He is a very well known political science professor from University of Chicago, Professor John Mearsheimer. And the reason was simple. The first talk that happened between the US and Iran, there was a 10-point plan that US accepted and President Trump accepted it. However, during the meetings, US presented another 15-point plan and took the maximalist positions on many issues. And Mr. Mohammad Baramdi, who is a well-known professor and one of the key spokesperson for the Iranian regime and the government, and even for IRGC, the Iranian Revolution Guard. He, in fact, was born in Virginia, in Alexandria, Virginia, US, but he is an Iranian and his entire family is Iranian. And he's a professor at University of Tehran. He also said that whenever J.D. Vance, and he was asked by one of the interviewers, not only here in the US, but others as well, that whenever J.D. Vance was asked a question, the VP, J.D. Vance, about yes or no, he would always get on a phone call. And as it has been reported, he was talking with Washington, D.C., and also with Tel Aviv. And that's when the maximalist positions came about. As according to John Mearsheimer, he said, the professor at University of Chicago, that at the end of the day, why would Iran would even meet with the US? The first time they met because they wanted to portray their position that yes, they are also interested in negotiations. But when the hardline positions were taken by President Trump and his administration, and according to him, no one knows what are the key objectives and the position in terms of end the war, because according to him, US has lost this war, and that's a big one in terms of a university professor at University of Chicago, Mr. John Mearsheimer, is talking about this. And one of his students was, in fact, this congressman who is also in news most of the time, Mr. Ro Khanna, Representative Congressman Ro Khanna. And he, in fact, was talking about, in response to Mike Waltz, who is the existing and current U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Previously, he also was the NSA advisor for several months in 2025. And the response was in regards to that statement that escalate to de-escalate. And Mike Waltz also said that we're going to destroy, according to him, the power plants and the infrastructure and bridges, which when he was pressed that that's a war crime, he said, no, that's not a war crime. But according to John Mearsheimer and many and everyone in the world, it is a war crime when you're going to attack bridges and power plants. But they said, according to Mike Waltz, that no, those are the power plants and bridges that are controlled by IRGC. So that's an argument. It's a weak argument, according to John Mearsheimer as well, because those bridges and power plants are also used by the public. And then when President Trump obviously made it very clear that he would attack those bridges and some of those very key bridges, and one of the bridges, in fact, was attacked, then the Iranian people literally were brave and they get on those bridges, literally, and they literally saved those bridges, because otherwise it would have been a lot of killing, and they would have died if President Trump would have still attacked those bridges. So it's a very delicate situation in terms of where we are. And then with regards to the aspects of the Pakistanis, and I know a lot of people may not like this, but Pakistanis cannot be trusted in this. And the reason is very simple, and according to John Marsheimer as well, and this is nothing about anti-Pakistan, I think this is just the reality in terms of what's happening. No one knows who is in charge in Pakistan. Is it the Asim Munir, the field marshal? Is it the prime minister? No one knows. And then when Mr. Mohammad Baramdi was asked by Western journalists that he was afraid for his life when they were flying back from Islamabad to Tehran, because the pilot diverted the plane and were landing on a different airport. And he was asking that this commentator was asking Mr. John Marsheimer, and you can watch his entire interview on YouTube, and it's online, that, hey, why were they afraid? Well, they are rightly afraid because the regime basically was decimated or decapitated. And then these folks were afraid of their lives. And that's why the Pakistanis also gave them the airspace in terms of the escort, what have you. So the next talks, as according to John Marsheimer, should be in Moscow and Beijing, because then they will not be afraid of anyone, and especially the Israelis taking down some more leadership from Iran. So that's a strong argument. Then the second strong argument is that Pakistanis are not the experts in terms of negotiations. They do not have any kind of, I would say, a past history in terms of some big negotiations that they have done. None. If there is one, people should tell us, because even the existing situation in Pakistan in terms of the political turmoil, and the former Prime Minister Imran Khan and his party, they continue to be in prison, and he is in prison for almost 3 years now in August. So if they cannot resolve their own internal political disputes, how can the world expect Pakistanis to resolve such a high stake situation here? And one argument is because Pakistanis owe a lot of money to the Saudis and also to UAE. Saudis obviously know that the US may not be there to protect their government. So now they're asking Pakistanis to protect themselves. And then obviously with regards to Qatar as well, no one knows what those agreements are. No one in Pakistan knows what those agreements are, because it's a police state. It's a very strong military junta or leadership that they have. So those are the arguments that John Marsheimer is also making. And now the Switzerland embassy is open in Tehran. So that's good news, because who knows, maybe in coming weeks or months, Switzerland, who is known for resolving some of the many international disputes in Geneva, in Switzerland, because that's where a lot of talks happened in the past with many international disputes in Switzerland, in Geneva. So let's hope that the world takes notice of this and put the pressure back on Iran and US, that let's bring in the right people to negotiate this, because this is about the future. This is about the international economy. And Trump is also getting pressurized by the strongest lobby in the US from Israel, and especially according to John Marsheimer, this professor, that Mike Waltz, Jared Kushner, and then number 3 is the golf buddy Steve Witkoff. They are very strong lobbyists for Israel. So there's a lot of pressure. And in the absence of not having strong mediators who are not getting swayed because they have to pay their next bill to balance their own budget, otherwise the country will go default, how can we expect the Pakistani government to be the expert negotiators? So that's the key argument, and that's where I hope that the world takes notice. And obviously their neighbor India, they're not happy about it, but they're never happy about anything that is good or anything positive that is coming out of Pakistan. So I don't blame India as well, because they are always fighting with each other. But this is bigger. This is bigger than India and Pakistan. This is the entire world is holding their breath. and the international economy is obviously really, really at risk. Some other news in terms of Reuters, exclusive US Fed has told big banks not to push back aggressively on new capital rules. That's very key information because now the new Fed chair, after Jerome Powell, obviously will be selected. The Washington Post has reported 6 takeaways from Virginia's vote to boost Democrats in national redistricting war. Gerrymandering is always wrong, regardless who does it, but both parties are doing it, and now Democrats are in better position. And Reuters also reported India rebukes Trump for sharing, quote, hellhole, unquote, remarks on birthright citizenship. So sorry to all the Indians, obviously, because no one should be calling any country that. However, Trump retracted those statements. And who made that? That's Michael Savage. I'll talk about him as well, but you can look him up. Virginia voters found the flood of ads confusing because that's where the push in better lines with GOP in the districts in Texas were 2 in Ohio and 1 each in Missouri and North Carolina. So Democrats responded by persuading voters to approve new maps that would give Democrats the edge in 5 seats in California and 4 in Virginia. And then the way the approval ratings of Trump is, it would be a political massacre in the November polls, for lack of a better term. But let's see what happens in terms of this gerrymandering. And then at this point, Virginia's voter decision Tuesday to redraw the state's congressional map is a crucial victory for Democrats, one that puts them ahead for now, at least in the national redistricting battle that President Donald Trump started last year. And that's where you can see the map. And those of you who have not subscribed my YouTube channel, please do. And thanks for being a subscriber if you already are. And then history in terms of Trump's low approval rating are so far favoring Democrats to win control of the House. And this is where it would be a major shift in terms of this whole political struggle and the political power in Washington, D.C. Supreme Court could scramble the map. That's important because there is the Voting Rights Act, and that decision by Republicans, they could also redraw a dozen or more seats in their favor. So let's see what the Supreme Court would rule. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has set a special legislative session for next week to consider new congressional lines, but has not yet made a new map public. So some more that's coming up on that front. The Times of India, the entire Indian mainstream media as well, was obviously condemning this. Trump has said India a great country, US in firefight mode after president's, quote, hellhole, unquote, remark. And then here is the Michael Savage quote, baby here becomes an instant citizen, and they bring the entire family in from China or India or some other hellhole on the planet, unquote, Savage said. And that's the transcript that Trump reposted, and he appeared on his talk show as well, and you can read more. And then the US Embassy in New Delhi said, quote, the president has said, quote, India is a great country with a very good friend of mine at the top, unquote. But the Congress Party, India's main opposition Congress Party, called the quote, whole quote, unquote, remark extremely insulting and anti-India. It hurts every Indian. And I can understand that if they would have said that to Pakistan as well, or to any other country, the citizens of that country would also be very upset. So they have every right to be upset. So Trump has issued a directive seeking of restrict birthright citizenship in the United States, a move that has been challenged in the U.S. Supreme Court. Earlier this month, he attended a hearing on the issue, an historic visit to the court, and no president in the modern history has ever attended any case but Trump, being in the reality show Apprentice, if you recall those days and that decade, and now being in the news all the time. This is where we are. Quote, the remarks are obviously uninformed, inappropriate, and in poor taste, unquote, the Indian Foreign Ministry spokesman Randhir Jaiswal said in a statement. India condemns remarks shared by Trump, calling it a hellhole. BBC also reports, so it was all over the news. And then the National Congress Party also put the pressure on Narendra Modi, Prime Minister, that he should take it up, but obviously he won't. Like Benjamin Netanyahu, Modi is also not going to say these kind of things, because that's where the craziest aspect of politics come into the picture. Let's leave it there. And then Michael Savage, he was banned in the UK. So many people who are really upset, they should not worry too much about it. The pro-Trump radio host banned from Britain for inciting right-wing violence. And he is one of those 19 or so people that the UK government banned in 2009. And this is where Jack Smith, who was the Home Minister this entire letter dated in May 2009 that you can also read. So that's some commentary and analysis. Obviously, you don't have to agree with these analysis, but like I said, some experts like John Mearsheimer, the political scientist professor at University of Chicago, and then even his student Ro Khanna, congressman, and then what Mike Walls basically has stated, and how these talks with US and Iran, some people who are obviously are citizens of Pakistan, they are thinking as if Pakistan is doing a favor. Pakistan is not doing any favor to anyone at this moment. They are just trying to be relevant, especially the government of Pakistan, and they are just trying to prolong their tenure and their stay in power for obvious reasons. And because of that, that's the reason Pakistan is involved in the Middle East politics, because Pakistan is not supposed to be in the Middle East. And since World Bank has put Pakistan in the Middle East and North Africa region because of the horrific and terrible rankings and stats that Pakistan has on unemployment and on healthcare and on education, and obviously women's rights to every fundamental right. It's in fact very sad that even people who live in the West, and especially in the US, they actually are not opening their eyes and looking at this from a humanity perspective. So I would also advocate that some experts who are expert negotiators, like people in Switzerland and others in Europe, should get involved and be the mediator and a strong mediator between US and Iran. So that has nothing to do with your affinity or your national origin or where you have come from. I respect everyone's national origin or wherever they have come from, but this is about humanity. This is about the international economy and the world economy, and then everyone's livelihood is at stake. And then there are risks of even reports coming in that Iran may also shut down the Red Sea. So I hope they don't, but you never know. They have leverage. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. I would like to thank our key advertiser, and especially if you have not mentioned specifically my name of Zishan On Air. That's how you support Zishan On Air and our radio program and our social media platforms, because these advertisers are here to pay our bills. Otherwise, airtime and social media platforms and the coverage, it's very expensive. So when you call Affordable Insurance of Texas, tell them Zishan On Air, or you have heard it from Zishan On Air, and their web address is aitinsurance.com, and their phone number is 737-855-4000, 737-855-4000. Auto insurance, get a quote, you will save hundreds and thousands of dollars. You can bundle it with homeowners insurance, commercial insurance, business insurance, you name it, and they have decades of experience and credibility. 737-855-4000. Also, Group Saudi Palace, you can set up a virtual video tour by calling this number 832-267-0065, 832-267-0065. You can go online, groupsaudi.com, or visit their showroom, men's showroom. They have a separate one, and for ladies, thousands of square footage, for men, women, for grooms, brides, Group Saudi Palace, and on the web, groupsaudi.com. And then also Shanghai, Texas. Go online. They have over 25 years of experience in catering. You can mention my name, Zishan, and Zishan On Air, and get discounts. But also they have all you can eat buffet, 30 plus items, Monday to Friday. Vegetarian items buffet, $12.99, non-veg, $14.99, and takeout buffet, $7.99 per pound. On the web, you can visit shahnaitexas.com, SHAHNAI Texas.com, or call 73953-1388, 73953-1388. With that, I'm signing off from social media, continuing with the legacy media and Nexus Big Baller Sports. With that, thank you for watching and thank you for listening.